Welcome to Insightful Gaming, the ultimate pit stop for dope gaming builds. Today, we're going to deep dive into my Whirlwind Barbarian build for Diablo 4. Now, if you're new to the game and looking for an easy but effective build for Tier 1 and 2, this build is for you. I'm about to help you master the Whirlwind strat, a favorite amongst Barbarian fans that has stood the test of time. This build is all about the Whirlwind skill, your ticket to wreaking havoc on a mob in one fell swoop. Your game plan starts by launching into the action with the lunging strike, closing in on your enemies. Follow this up with a rallying cry to stockpile your fury before you unleash the beast with Whirlwind. Once your enemies are dancing to your tune, crank up the war cry for a badass berserking buff that jacks up your damage. This skill combo is your ticket to keep the Whirlwind spinning and blazing through dungeons, as long as you have enemies to flatten. Now for the bigger fish like elites and bosses, that's when you dial up the wrath of the Berserker. This bad boy gives you a wicked spike in damage and a speed boost to match. However, remember, shouts like these have a limited lifespan, so timing their use based on the situation is your ticket to becoming a master of this build. Alright, enough rambling. If you got a kick out of this build and found it useful, make sure to give this video a thumbs up, drop us a comment, and hit that subscribe button for more wicked gaming content. Let's get into the build. Okay, now that you have the blueprint, let's get into the nitty-gritty of each skill. Kicking off with Lunging Strike. No matter where you are, this baby is your go-to for launching an attack. It propels you straight into the heart of the action, dealing a good chunk of damage while helping you cover any mobility issues. Plus, it's a goldmine for stacking up fury, which is crucial for revving up your Whirlwind. To juice up your Lunging Strike, in our skill tree, we are going to pick Enhanced Lunging Strike and Battle Lunging Strike. These skill points are your best buddies against all types of enemies. Enhanced Lunging Strike provides a self-healing perk when you attack a full health target, while Battle Lunging Strike slaps a bleeding effect for extra damage over time. Both of these beauties also increase your single target damage, making them clutch during boss fights. Next up, Rallying Cry, your secret weapon for skyrocketing your fury regen and movement speed. This skill is a gem with a tactical Rallying Cry upgrade, letting you rack up enough fury to kick off your Whirlwind dance as soon as the fight breaks out. Plus, with Enhanced Rallying Cry, you become an unshakable force, shaking off any crowd control effects enemies try to throw at you. In short, Rallying Cry is your key to steady fury generation and crowd control protection, and it's your lifeline when things get too dicey on the battlefield. Now let's talk Whirlwind, the main act of this build. Once you fill up your fury meter, it's showtime with Whirlwind, your #1 source of area damage. The more targets you have, the better, as you'll want to keep your fury generation high. Enhanced Whirlwind lets you conserve more fury with each enemy you hit. Keep your spin over as many enemies as possible to optimize your fury gains. The Furious Whirlwind upgrade adds a bleeding effect, and the Pressure Points passive makes enemies vulnerable, letting you milk your equipment effects for all they're worth. And last but not least, War Cry, another shout skill that cranks up your damage output. When enhanced, War Cry instantly puts you in berserking mode, taking your damage through the roof. Let's take a closer look and break down how the mighty build comes to life in your game. We're talking about tactics, maneuvers, and all the ins and outs that you need to know to execute this build. When you step into the ring with a boss, the first order of business should be to throw a couple of lunging strikes their way. This opening salvo doesn't just inflict a bleeding status on your foe, it also tops up your fury bar. Once you've got a healthy fury meter, you're ready for the next phase. Trigger both Rallying Cry and War Cry back to back, then break out the big guns with Wrath of the Berserker. These are all your warm-up moves to get you ready for the main event, firing up Whirlwind. Now your job is to pirouette around your adversary in lethal circles, neatly sidestepping their blows whilst relentlessly whittling down their health. Next up in our strategy briefing is where Wrath of the Berserker comes into play. This skill, especially when paired with its upgraded versions, Prime Wrath of the Berserker and Supreme Wrath of the Berserker, slots perfectly into this build. As soon as it's activated, it supercharges you with a bunch of perks: faster movement speed, a surge in fury generation, the berserking status, and an unstoppable buff. This, combined with the buffed-up attack speed from Rallying Cry, means your fury keeps ticking up, even when your attention is wholly on one target. When you're in full Berserker mode, every bit of fury you spend gives you a 25% bonus damage, and trust me, you'll be spending a lot thanks to your steady use of Whirlwind. It's important to note, though, that this buff has a 5-second timer. No sweat, though, because you can easily reset this clock with a single lunging strike. Not only does this move extend your buff's lifespan, but it also contributes to your bleed damage and chips away at the boss's health bar. It's also your secret weapon when you need a quick exit strategy in a sticky situation. You'll find that once your buffs have fizzled out, keeping Whirlwind going can be tough. When this happens, it's a good idea to switch back to lunging strike a few times, then rev up Whirlwind again. Keep this cycle going until you're ready to reignite both Rallying Cry and War Cry, then use them in unison to deliver the 𝗕𝗘𝗥 to the boss. To round things off, it's vital to max out the booming voice passive for this build. This tweak extends the duration of your shouts and by extension, your Whirlwind, meaning you can keep laying on the pressure for that much longer. Next up, let's talk about the arsenal system and weapon expertise. The Barbarian has access to a unique mechanic called the arsenal system. Your arsenal system has the bludgeoning weapons in the left slot, dual wield options in the central slot, and slashing weapons taking up the right slot. Assigning a weapon type from your arsenal to a skill is straightforward. Just pull up the skill menu, hover over the skill you want to assign to a slot in your toolbar, and press the cycle weapon button. Choose the weapon type that fits your strategy. From this moment forward, every attack you unleash with this skill will call upon your chosen weapon. Assigning a specific weapon type serves two main purposes. First off, each weapon carries its own unique expertise passive that kicks in when you use that weapon. For this build, the best choices for your slashing weapon would be either a two-handed axe. Its damage boost against vulnerable enemies works great with the pressure point passive, or a two-handed sword, which inflicts a percentage of direct damage as bleeding damage over 5 seconds. The second factor here is weapon swapping. Certain abilities and passives reward you every time you switch weapons. In this case, it's a smart move to assign a bludgeoning weapon to lunging strike and a slashing weapon to Whirlwind. It's important to remember to assign a slashing weapon to Whirlwind to set off the furious Whirlwind effect. Once you've hit level 15, you unlock the Masters of Battle class mechanic quest. Finishing this quest gets you access to the technique slot. This slot allows you to pick a weapon expertise effect that applies to all your attacks, no matter what type of weapon you're currently using. The best choice for this build would be to equip either a two-handed axe or a two-handed sword, and then choose the technique of the other weapon type. This way, you get to enjoy bonuses from both weapons while you're in the thick of Whirlwind. A word of caution though, don't get too fixated on this technique. Your main focus while you're leveling up should be getting the best weapon you can. And with that, we're wrapping up our in-depth guide on the Whirlwind Barbarian build. Let's take a quick look at some crucial pointers and recommendations. In your gear hunt, don't lose sight of the important attributes. Increased strength, active skill ranks, whirlwind damage, damage to nearby enemies, critical strike damage, and fury cost reduction should be your main targets. You might notice that our build leaves an active slot unfilled. That's by design. We're focusing on maxing out Whirlwind's damage potential instead of spreading thin over many active skills. As you level up further, though, it could be worth your while to bring the charged skill into play. Its unstoppable effect is handy in shaking off crowd control effect. This build stands among the mightiest in Diablo 4 for the Barbarian class, thanks to its ability to blitz through enemy hordes. However, you'll need to zero in on certain aspects to get there. Keep in mind that the Barbarian can wield 4 weapons, and 2 of these can be two-handed, each delivering a 100% bonus to its linked aspect. Here's a list of codex of power aspects to keep an eye out for. However, don't neglect any fortunate drops that might come your way. On the offensive, aim for aspect of the Dire Whirlwind, ups the critical chance of Whirlwind the longer it's in play. Aspect of Berserk Ripping, converts some of the damage dealt while berserking into bleed damage. Aspect of Ancestral Echoes, conjures an ancient that copies your Whirlwind for a short time, cranking up your damage output. Aspect of Anemia, gives you a chance to stun bleeding foes when you damage them. For defense, look at Aspect of the Disobedience, pumps up your armor as you strike enemies. Aspect of the Protector, throws up a protective shield when you damage an elite. The Iron Blood aspect, reduces incoming damage for each nearby bleeding enemy. To keep the fury rolling in, try the aspect of Echoing Fury, which generates fury each second when shouts are active. Since you'll be triggering Berserk often, investing in aggressive resistance to unlock prolific fury would be smart. Every time you enter Berserk, your fury gets a boost, which lets you keep the Whirlwind going for longer. The main aim with this build is to keep Whirlwind spinning as much as possible. That's it for today. If you enjoyed this build and found it helpful, don't forget to smash that like button, drop comment below, and subscribe to our channel for more exhilarating builds and gaming content. Thanks for watching, and have a fantastic rest of your week.